Yeah, you read the title correctly. This is a very stupid sounding theory I made over a year ago, and it still somehow holds up some weight. Hell, I would say it makes more sense now. And plus that video was very badly done. And I want to do the theory more justice this time, since it actually makes a lot of sense and I think improves some aspects of BFDI. I don't really have much more to say, so let's start. This theory started out with a simple thought. I was thinking of how Evil Leafy and 4 have never appeared at the same time, and how out of all contestants Evil Leafy was one of the only ones that didn't join BFB. And while thinking about that I realized, 4 and Evil Leafy seem to share abilities. 4 and Evil Leafy can teleport, melt to go into things, and most strangely both have non-Euclidean spaces inside of them that can be entered through their mouths. This is pretty off. Specifically the last one, as characters don't usually share abilities like this. The only ability here that is kinda common is the teleport, but again that's only shared between the algebra aliens due to the Yoilite, which Evil Leafy most likely didn't have, and this led to more strange things, like why is Evil Leafy a thing in general? Usually characters like this are only restricted to being one-time background roles as an RC, but Evil Leafy is the only one that is just a variant yet gets continuous screen time. The only outliers are Robot Flower and Fiery Jr., but those characters were developed further in BFB, which had them both appear since every character was coming back, but Evil Leafy didn't appear in BFB. She appeared in BFDI when all the other characters were in the LOL. Evil Leafy just doesn't fit anywhere, and has no real explanation character-wise. Hell, in pre-revival BFDI when she appeared most frequently, RCs wouldn't appear mid-episode, and were instead at the end of episodes. Evil Leafy again breaks this trend. Evil Leafy just doesn't fit anywhere, but then Teapot 11 came out. And in this episode we see this scene. 4 did the exact same scream as Evil Leafy. This made me get an idea. 4 can shapeshift. What if 4 was actually Evil Leafy? At first this thought seemed really stupid, because it kinda is. These two characters with nearly no correlation being the same person. But then I thought about it more, and the more I did the more it made sense, and eventually I formed a narrative with this theory. I will now explain what this theory will mean for BFDI's plot, and explain why things make sense when I need to. So with that, it starts out in 2009, and the whole one fiasco happens. The Algebralines all split off into different planets. 4 and X go to Earth. I think this due to a few reasons. In BFB 1, 4 just happens to be close enough to the Earth to notice black hole and stop him from enveloping the Earth. 4 noticing this means that they were not far off from the Earth, which means 4 was either in the weird planet in the Orion Nebula or the Algebra planet. We know they weren't on the Algebra planet, so the contender is the weird planet in the Orion Nebula, which actually doesn't mess anything with the theory. So 4 was either on Earth or on the weird planet. But I'm leaning towards Earth, since being close to the moon, which one was trapped in, would be a smarter choice in case one was to break out somehow. And while on Earth, BFDI the show starts being aired, and 4 watches it and loves it, since 4 most likely saw BFDI as soon as it started being made, and then announcer starts roaming the Earth in search for people, and ask them for the debut. 4 being on Earth will most likely want to join, since they are such a big fan of BFDI, and since they can shape-shift, and all contestants up to that point were objects, they would most likely shape-shift into a character that fits better for BFDI, and most recommended characters are just character variants. So 4 in universe turning into a character variant isn't that out of place, and then using this disguise they try joining BFDI but fails. Then after the whole Dream Island fiasco BFDI happens, and in BFDI Evil Leafy fails to join again, but this time 4 decides to join in without being a contestant, and instead chases the characters around both to just be present and to add more intensity to episodes. This would also explain why Evil Leafy sometimes just can't catch the contestants, as 4 doesn't actually want to kill them, and just wants to add conflict. Besides, if all of the contestants did die, the show will get cancelled, and 4 definitely doesn't want that. And then after BFDI IDFB happens, in IDFB there is no competition to get recorded, so instead as Evil Leafy, 4 stalks the cast to see what they are doing, and in case another show starts. But after IDFB no show starts, so after everyone gets out, 4 waits for an opportunity to introduce themselves to the cast and start a new show, since there hasn't been one in a year. This also explains why 4 just happened to be there when black holes started approaching Earth. They were most likely stalking the cast, and what character was stalking the cast and wasn't in BFB? Evil Leafy. And afterwards 4 doesn't really need to be Evil Leafy anymore, so they drop it and just continue as 4. Explaining why Evil Leafy hasn't appeared in a year. This makes a lot of things that seemed random make sense. Why did Evil Leafy have a weird pocket dimension inside her? It was simply a part of the exit 4 changed specifically for Evil Leafy. How can Evil Leafy come back from death despite being ripped apart and crushed? We have already seen that 4 can change in form and shape, so this is probably not even death, just the form getting destroyed. How can Evil Leafy go inside people and then just pop out whenever she wants? We have seen 4 get stored inside people, specifically in early BFB where they'd go inside Donut after multiplied with him, and this theory doesn't really break any of the current lore, instead it adds to it. And that's it really. While this theory seems pretty wild and nonsensical, if you look at it seriously it's pretty simple and sensible, and the fact that this theory has stood the test of time for over 530 days is genuinely insane, considering that we have gotten so much Algebroline lore, and the BFDIO continuation which both had 4 and Evil Leafy in them, and could have easily made this theory easily disprovable, but it didn't. So yeah, this was what I wanted the original video to be like, but I was really inexperienced back then, so I'm happy to do this theory some justice for once. See you all.